Ooh. Ooh. All right. So, the power of sleep. Welcome, everybody. I'm Jim Lewis. Uh, Feel free to ask any questions in the chat if you want during the talk. I kind of like to keep things informal, so feel free to ask along the way. So, I guess this first question is, why do we sleep? Right? So, sleep gives us both a physical and a mental renewal. It gives us a chance to have this sort of cognitive refreshment. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. And when you think about it, especially now during finals, people pull all-nighters. Sleep is one of the first things that you sometimes let go to finish that project or to do that thing. So, uh, sleep is the thing we kind of need the most in some ways. It can help stave off depression. It can help us feel more awake, more alert. But it's one of the first things that we let go. So, uh, how this is going to be a little hard without interaction, but I mean, how many of you aren't really sure what day it is right now? We get that passage of time, uh, different days. We get this through sleep. Wait, sorry. There we go. Um, we have this thing called our circadian rhythm. It helps us know when to sleep, when to wake up. Have you ever been getting up at like 5 o'clock in the morning every day for like a month, and then you finally get a day where you can sleep to like? I am so sorry. Hold on one second. Oh, there we go. So, so I don't know what correlation the universe has with that, but my home phone only rings when I'm on a Zoom call. It is an amazing coincidence. All right. So, sleep gives us this time passage, this idea of when we're asleep, when we're awake, when we should go get up, when we shouldn't. Like I was saying, if you've ever been up every morning at 5 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 5 o'clock, then you get to sleep till whenever, and you find yourself waking up at 5 o'clock. That's your circadian rhythm. It's the thing that gets thrown off when we set the clocks back or ahead more so than back, but just it messes up our internal clock, and that's basically our circadian rhythm. Like I was saying, being in quarantine, not really having specific time, this has been probably thrown off. Trying to stay consistent, and I'm saying this, I know this mentally, but like last night I got a really bad night's sleep, so not at my top form right now. Uh, Consistency, that's one of the best things that you can do. Uh, just being consistent about everything. Uh, get yourself into a cycle, trying to keep your circadian rhythm as stable as possible. We need about 7 to 9 hours of sleep, uh, 7 being the low end, 9 being the high end. Not getting enough sleep can leave us tired during the day. People can make mistakes. You're not quite at your best when you get less than 7. And ironically, getting more than 9 can also be detrimental. It seems like if you sleep more than 10 hours, you can actually start having negative health effects. So you kind of want to stay in that sweet spot. Uh, Nobody asked, but it's actually, you can't really make up lost sleep. So it's sort of something it's not like you can do 4 hours a night, Monday through Friday, and then sleep for 15 hours over the weekend. It's sort of something we consistently need. Um, and this is sort of our sleep cycle. I hope you guys can see my cursor. Uh, so this is the, I'm so sleepy, I gotta go sleep. And when we hit this thing, REM sleep, which I mentioned up here, REM sleep, that's where we get our mental or cognitive renewal. Uh, that's sort of where you feel more mentally healthy. And this is the stage that we dream in. It stands for rapid eye movement. And your eyes actually flutter when you're in REM sleep. Then we kind of have the deep sleep down here. And sort of this stuff, this is where we get our physical feeling of rest. Uh, as you can see, we don't dream proportionately that much throughout the entire night. We only sort of dream for a short period of time every night. Um, so as we're going through this, we go through different periods. Ideally, and this is something you have to play along with yourself because this cycle is for everybody, sort of averaged out. You might be a little earlier or a little later, but ideally you want to wake up here when you're sort of really close in REM sleep. And then have you ever woken up and the alarm just goes off and you're like, yes, I'm going to start my day. And then other days you wake up and you're sort of down here in this cycle and you're like a zombie, like, ah, and you just can't get going no matter what you do. So, yeah, yeah. So actually, sort of triggering when you wake up and when you sleep, and having that can actually really let you like wake up and ready to go. This is sort of my own meanderings of what I've put together from what I've read and played around with myself. People seem to have an amount they need. Like I personally seem to do better with an odd number of hours of sleep, so I'm better with 7 or 9 than I am with 6 or 8. Seems to help a lot when I wake up. Uh, but yeah, so you can play around with that. Um, I'm going to hit 2 questions that I might have answered later on in the PowerPoint because I only made the PowerPoint last night. Power nap. So have you ever wanted to take a nap and then you take it for a little too long and you wake up more tired than when you went to sleep? A power nap is this idea of here you are awake, you take a little nap, you dip down, and then before you get into this stage 1 sort of area here, you sort of dip down and then boom, pop back up. So that's why the key for a power nap is to keep it under 15 minutes. Uh, this lets you wake up. And of course, you shouldn't drive when you're sleepy, but if you are sleepy and you pull over and you get that little power nap, it will actually help you. You'll be much safer driving. Um, and then another question, especially this time of year that comes out, you've been up till 4 o'clock in the morning. You've got to do something at 8. What do you do? Do you stay awake or do you go to sleep? So you've been pulling this all-nighter. What should you do? And people always wonder, and the answer is 4. If you're not going to get more than 4 hours of sleep, you should probably stay up. You'll probably be better in the short term. Long term, it's going to have bad effects on you, but in the short term, 4 hours is probably the most you need to have it be worth going to sleep. Less than 4 hours, you're not going to really get any benefit from it. And that's a question that a lot of you probably have right now. You know, you've been pulling the all-nighters, you've been doing stuff. Do you stay awake or do you go to sleep when you're in that situation? Yeah. Oh, the power nap. Yeah. Keeping it under 10, 15 minutes. That's key. Cool. So dreams. If any of you have any questions on this, this is going to make that a lot more fun. There's sort of 3 main categories. That's probably the best way to think of it as of putting dreams together. The random firing idea, this is that basically dreams don't mean anything. They don't really serve a function. It's just a neurochemical thing that we do, a very biological, uh, non, non, I don't want to say interesting, but that's probably the best way to say it, that there's just these biological things going on. There's the psychodynamic approach. If any of you ever heard that dreams mean anything, like have you ever had this dream that you're eating a giant marshmallow and then you wake up and your pillow's gone? I see I even put pause for laughter in there. Thank you. Thank you. So yeah, so we're going to really be talking about the psychodynamic approach and the learning theory. Uh, so psychodynamic dreams mean something. They're trying to tell you something. Uh, this was first really, well, not first. People have been interpreting dreams in some way or another for centuries. Uh, but Freud, uh, dreams mean something. You have the manifest and the latent content. The manifest content, that's the thing that you dream about. The latent content, that's what it means. So, if you ever have this dream about, let's see, trying to think of something that won't get me fired. Uh, a train going into a tunnel. What could that possibly mean? You know, and if you're ever taking a psych class and Freud is the question, the answer is usually sex. So a train going into a tunnel, that would be the manifest content. The latent content, I'll let you guys figure that out. All right. So, I mean, this is where you get. Uh, there's lots of different ways of doing dream interpretation, but this is sort of the, I don't want to say standard, but the more traditional. That's probably a better way of saying it. Um, so this is like if you have a dream and does it mean something? How many of you have ever had that dream that you're in class in your underwear and now that dream has absolutely no power over you? Yeah, right? Get it? Because, yeah, anyway. All right. So that's a psychodynamic approach that, things mean something that we kind of have this, had a really good dream last night that I was going to mention to you guys. And it's escaping me. But the one I had the night before, yep. Thank you very much. uh, but I had one the night before. My father had part of his foot amputated when he was alive, and he passed away 4 years ago. And I had a dream the other night, and it was really vivid that he was in the hospital on one of those like skateboard kind of things, and he had dyed his hair blonde, and I was like what's going on, So I'll let you figure out what that might mean. But now for being in school and cutting out sleep, the other theory that I mentioned up here, the learning theory, there's sort of two components to it. It's memory consolidation, and with that you have reinforcing important memories and dropping out of memories that might not be useful. Uh, so with the consolidation of memories, have you ever been doing something physical for the first time? Like you've never gone snowboarding before, and then that night you have a snowboarding dream? It's this idea that this repetition, and there's some really cool experiments. You take two groups of college students, they both learn a list of words. One of them, you wake up over here in REM sleep. This is where you're dreaming, and this is where you're consolidating your memories. In deep sleep, you're not. So you wake up one group in deep sleep, the other group gets woken up in REM sleep. The group that was woken up during REM sleep actually remembers fewer words in the end. So they're not able to consolidate their memories as much, and their performance on memory tasks for that is considerably worse than the group that was woken up during non-REM sleep down here. So, this is one of those things that also kind of ties into the all-nighter, the traditional all-nighter that you're trying to cram to remember stuff, and the thing that's actually helping you remember is the thing that you're hurting. There's some more evidence of this. Infants spend more time in REM sleep. So if you're an infant, uh, you're trying to learn the entire world. Imagine, I'll bring the cup. Your hand is going for the cup. You successfully grabbed it for the first time. And now you're like, so that's how that thing works. Cool. All right. So, yeah, when we cut sleep or pulling the all-nighter, how long should we stay? I already mentioned this, the 4-hour thing. So, all right, cool. So here's some common problems that I was going to talk about with sleep. Have you ever gotten a good night's sleep? So, some of these are kind of cool, actually. I mean, they're horrible if you have them, but they're kind of cool to talk about. Sleep apnea. This is actually something I suffer from. This is one of the reasons why I've been so into sleep lately, because I sleep with a CPAP machine, which keeps me breathing through the night, because sleep apnea is when you stop breathing. And going back to that cycle, it interrupts your sleep cycle, so you wind up not having a restful night's sleep. So you may have slept for 8 hours, but sorry if this is making you dizzy going back and forth like this. But this whole cycle gets all messed up because you've been, throughout this period of waking up and going to sleep and waking up and going to sleep, because you stop breathing. Uh, and literally, you stop breathing. Like last night, I can look this up uh, just because I don't mind sharing. I had 5.6 events last night per hour. I slept for 5 hours with the mask on. So that means for fifth, that would be 50 seconds an hour. So for what's that, about 5 minutes? I wasn't like 5 full minutes last night. I wasn't breathing. And that's with the machine on. Without the machine, it's even more, and that cycle gets messed up even more. Uh, it's unfortunate. It's annoying in adults. In infants, it's considered to be a cause of SIDS, which is sudden infant death syndrome, where infants below the age of 18 months, uh, they stop breathing and then they're not able to restart their breathing and they just pass away. Uh, SIDS is somewhat unknown, but it seems like sleep apnea is one of the problems. Night terrors, this is an uncontrollable. So here's a way of thinking about a night terror. Imagine if you meet somebody, you fall in love, and now you're spending in passing, they mention that they suffer from a night terror, but you don't know what that is. And you spend your first night with that person. And in the middle of the night, dead sleep, they get up, they start screaming uncontrollably. I've never heard one, but everyone who's ever told me that's heard one says it's blood curdling. It's not like just a regular, ah, it's like this panicked, horrible scream. And then the person just goes back to sleep. And most of the time, they don't even remember they had it. So that's a night terror. It actually, again, I'm so sorry if this, oops, so sorry if this is making, ooh, sorry. Didn't mean to do that. Uh, it actually originates from deep sleep. So you're kind of popping up, screaming, and then you go back to sleep. So yeah, it's much more common in children than it is in adults, but it can persist into adulthood. And I just touched my face. Okay. Narcolepsy, that's the uncontrollable falling asleep. You may be awake, and then all of a sudden you go into deep sleep. Um, it's associated with this thing called cataplexy, where our body goes into a state of deep relaxation. So you might be alert and awake one moment, and then boom, you just sort of go to sleep. Oh, I got night terrors on there twice. I'm sorry. Uh, so these next two, sleep paralysis and hypnagogic hallucination, yes, it's fairly common in children. Um, I shouldn't say fairly common. It's much more common in children, and for some reason it seems to disappear around the age of 8. A lot of people sort of I don't want to say outgrow it because that doesn't seem right, but they sort of compensate for it. And in some people, it can continue into adulthood, and it's something that they have not every night. It's not like they do this every night, but stress can bring it on. Uh, and yeah, children, it's much more common in children than it is in adults. So uh, it's definitely something, uh, unfortunately, that children can do. Shoot, that's what I forgot was sleepwalking. Sleepwalking is another one that's actually much more common in children than it is in adults. I was going to put sleepwalking on there. I'm sorry. Uh, so sleepwalking, our brain doesn't really know we're asleep. This is kind of cool, right? Like, have you ever had a dream that's completely realistic? The falling dream is actually the most common dream that most people share. That dream where you're falling, and then just as you're about to hit the ground, you completely tense up and you wake yourself up. That's a really common dream for folks to have. And part of the reason is our brain doesn't realize we're asleep, which is why dreams can feel so realistic. And I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But dreams can feel super realistic. And that's why, like, a lot of times when we're trying to run in our dreams, we tell ourselves, run. And we send this message to our legs, run. And our body goes into a state where we don't move, where we sort of paralyze ourselves, so we don't act out our dreams, and we make a chemical that blocks us from moving, and your legs are sending back a signal to your brain, we're not moving. So your brain's trying to figure out how to put this together, like we're telling ourselves to run, but we're not. So when that monster's coming at you in the dream, you think you're running, but you're not, and you get that molasses like thing, the falling down. Ooh, falling downstairs. Interesting. No, just kidding. Uh, uh, so, but sleepwalking, we don't make enough of this chemical, and then some people can actually act out their dreams, and it can be dangerous. People have been known to, walk into traffic and stuff. There is this old wives' tale about it's dangerous to wake somebody up, but it's much more dangerous to not wake them up if they're going to do something, like falling downstairs and stuff, uh, or walking out into traffic. Uh, One of the craziest ones I ever read, which, this always struck me as like, I don't know if this was really sleepwalking or not. This guy got out of bed, slept, walk, went something like 3/4 of a mile to his in-laws' house, grabbed a butcher knife, and killed both of his in-laws. And he got off of murder because he had a history of sleepwalking. He was able to use sleepwalking as a defense. He did, however, wind up under court order, spending the rest of his life where he's got to have a lock on his bedroom door. And there's like a code book. So he's got to look up what day it is, and then because the code changes every day, and then use the code to get out because he's considered to be a danger to others. That one I read more from the legal stuff that I've read on that. So, so sleep paralysis, this is something that's kind of common. It may or may not be associated with a hypnagogic hallucination, which I'll talk about in a second. But have you ever woken up and you go to get out of bed and you can't move? And for what feels like an eternity, you're there trying to move, trying to get up, and your body's not responding. And you're like, oh my God, what's happened? I'm paralyzed. I can't move. I can't move. And it's usually only about half a second to 2 seconds max. But it feels, if it's ever happened to you, it feels like it's forever. The subjective time is just so much greater. And you feel like, you know what? Something happened. This is it. This is how I'm going to spend the rest of my life. And then you're able to move. What can make it even wilder is something called a hypnagogic hallucination. Now, that culturally, there's different places where these happen. Some folks get them while they're falling asleep, and some folks get them while waking up. Oops, wait, sorry. So this hypnagogic hallucination, you wake up, but your brain is still in REM sleep. I realize I'm talking with my hands, but below camera. You wake up, but your brain is still in REM sleep, and for a brief period of time, you see your dream. Uh, this is the number one explanation for aliens and demons. In the Netherlands, they call it, pardon this expression, I didn't come up with it, the old hag phenomena, where somebody will be going to sleep and they'll see a demon on their chest or a witch in the room. Uh, More common for people is to see an alien. Uh, it's a terrifying experience. I've never heard of them being like positive. So like I've never heard where people can You know, I'm sure they probably have been. You know, maybe you see a deceased loved one or something like that, but I've always seen them with a certain amount of terror involved in them, where you see something extraordinarily scary. I actually had one once where I was falling asleep, uh, and I was sort of having a bad dream, so I woke myself up, and I saw somebody at the foot of my bed with a knife, and they were coming at me, and then they ducked off into the darkness, and it's often associated with sleep paralysis. At the time, I was 19 years old. I had a baseball bat next to my bed, and I couldn't move. I had a touch lamp. I couldn't even move to touch the touch lamp. I've never been more scared in my life. Finally, I hit the touch lamp. Lights come on. There's nobody in the room. Until I found out what a hypnagogic hallucination was, I thought I had seen a ghost. Uh, so you get a lot of like occult slash horror, I guess is a good way of saying it. Because aliens are also another, common one. Because if you see an alien there at the foot of your bed, you wake up, now you're completely awake, they're gone. They must have beamed out or something like that. And, you know, and now I'm not sure if I forgot sleepwalking or, yeah, I gave it its own slide. Lucid dreaming. If anybody's ever seen Inception, that was this taken to uh, a whole nother level. So lucid dreaming is this phenomena where people are able to control their dreams. So you're actually in this dream, and now you know you're in a dream, and it may or not have this may or may not have happened to you before, uh, but if it ever has, it's an amazing experience because you're able to control anything you can do. Literally, you're in this like ultimate VR where you can control anything, you can do anything. You have to stay within the bounds of the dream. Like I couldn't, let's say instead of doing this talk right now, I'm actually dreaming. I can't be like, oh, cool, I'm dreaming right now. I'm gonna go hop in my X-wing fighter. I'd have to be like, look, my X-wing fighter is parked in my backyard. I got to go outside, go into the backyard, then I can get into my X-wing fighter and go blow up the Death Star. Uh, I can't just like if I alter it too much, you can crash the dream, and then it's not. You wind up waking up. Nothing bad will happen to you. Uh, Going back to what I was saying before about rapid eye movement, uh, if you're interested in this, some people can't do it naturally. Some people, yes, you can train yourself. Uh, that was originally how I had learned to do it. Actually, when I had that hypnagogic hallucination that I was talking about before, I realized I was in a dream because I was good at it at that point, and ever since then I haven't been able to do it. It's sort of like I like had this really cool thing and then I broke it. By the way, the two aren't associated with each other. It just so happened. But there are ways, basically telling yourself that you're going to have a conscious awareness during your dream, that you're about to dream. The problem solving thing I've heard very recently that, and I don't know how true this is, but that if you talk to people in your dream and ask them questions, because one of the things about dreams that make them so cool, and back to the Freudian slash dreams mean something, you're making the entire dream, right? I don't know if you've ever seen this where you can't read in your dream. The reason why you can't read in your dream is you're creating the entire thing. So you're actually creating the words that you'd be reading. This is why if you've ever had this ability where like you don't speak French, but in a dream you can speak French, it's because you're just saying whatever you think French is, and in the dream it makes sense. Everybody in that dream can do it. So to use it for problem solving, everybody in your dream, and this gets into a Freudian slash Jungian interpretation, everyone in that dream is actually you to some degree or part of you. So if you actually start asking that person in the dream questions, that person can actually tell you answers about yourself that maybe you didn't think you had. So maybe a slightly different type of problem solving, but yeah, you can definitely use it for problem solving. So, um, going back to if you're not good at this, and the rapid eye movement that I was mentioning before, there's goggles that you can buy that sense that you're in REM sleep, and then they start to. Oh, wait, I'll put my glasses on for a second. So imagine these are the goggles. You put the goggles on, right? And then there are LED lights that start to flash. So if you're in a dream, it would sort of have a sort of like the green around my screen right now. It would be like a red halo of LED lights that would let you know that, hey, I'm in a dream. So, yeah. So I believe, does anybody have any questions or anything? Anything that you'd like to ask me? Yeah, feel free. This is just like class. Yay. Cool. Okay, wait. Uh, in Inception, that lady wasn't able to wake up from a dream. Is that possible? Um, you know, the thing about dreams, timing, right? Like, how long do dreams take? And there's some evidence that they line up fairly well with real time, but then there's also this concept of dream time. Like, have you ever been in a dream and you're like, oh, I'd like to go to Colorado, and you go to Colorado in like 2 seconds because it, you like in a dream, like dream logic kind of, and dream time. My advisor explained this to me once in a dream that he had, which I've been using as an example pretty much my entire teaching life. He had a dream that he was a French nobleman during the French Revolution, and he was put on trial, and he was taken to the guillotine, and they put the guillotine above him, and then boom, they released the guillotine, and as the guillotine's about to hit the back of his neck in the dream, this painting that had been hanging over his bed had fallen off the wall and hit him in the back of the head. And people sometimes use this confirmation bias and stuff. What he was using it as an example was that probably that entire dream happened in that one instant when the painting hit. And this reconstruction that we have, um, Freud sort of said that we don't dream in the narrative that we think of later, that we put that together when we wake up. So that there's one theory of dreaming that we dream in these images, and then we weave that together as a story when we're awake. Like if I'm trying to tell you my dream and it's like, well, this happened and this happened. So I kind of confabulate the dream into being one narrative. And then there's other research from more modern stuff where using brain scans and stuff when people are actually dreaming, you can wake them up and they actually have a very specific point that they're in a dream. So, it's sort of a unclear thing. But you wouldn't ever not be able to wake up from a dream unless it's maybe death. No, I'm just kidding. Oh, that's actually a really cool one. If we die in our dreams, do we die in real life? What do you think? Yep, because the only one, if somebody wakes up dead, you can't really ask them, what were you dreaming? And, people have reported dying in their dreams. So, yeah, that one kind of doesn't really hold water. And can dreams be a premonition or a warning? And maybe, not probably in the metaphysical sense that some people think that, ooh, I had a dream last night that my teeth felt were falling out. And that means somebody's going to die. Because so in psychology, there's this thing called the confirmation bias. If you have a belief and then you look for data to support that belief, you sometimes you can kind of grasp at straws and find data that sort of supports that. So, if you have this dream that your teeth are falling out and then somebody dies, you go, "Oh, look at that. The dream was true." You have your dream that your teeth were falling out and then nobody dies. You don't really remember that. So, that's why it's called the confirmation bias. So, to that, maybe a dream might be telling you that you know, you have this big presentation, maybe your capstone project or your senior project, and you're feeling like you have a dream that you feel like you're not prepared for it, right? That might be a premonition of, or part of your brain telling you, maybe we need to go over this one more time. So it's not a premonition that's something metaphysical, like in a metaphysical sense, but it might be your brain telling you, sometimes we lie to ourselves a little bit, like, oh, it'll be okay. I'll be able to get through this. I'll be able to do this. And, maybe the premonition isn't so much from this external force of like nature telling you that this is, you know, it could just be that it's a way of telling you, hey, I'm not ready for this. Uh, Hold on. Yeah. So to Sam's point, dreams are a way of our brain to train itself. Um, Possibly, but again, not in some sort of metaphysical way. It's sort of back to the infant thing. It's a way of us learning and a way of us incorporating and consolidating memories in such a way so that we can, sort of do things. I mean, that physical, if you ever learn something new that's physical, it's sort of like dreams give us this practice space to do this, and it's sort of safe, and it's a way of rehearsing further. Um, I mean, this is probably more of a tangent question, but have you ever been playing a video game and you've been playing a video game and you've been playing a video game and you've been playing a video game, and then that night you go to bed and you dream that you're playing the video game, like you're in the video game kind of. Um, it's that sort of extra safe space to, truly safe space to rehearse new things. Joel, how you doing? Uh, a lot of times it's because we're just not ready to. A lot of our dreams are really boring. Like, it's the ones that stand out that we remember. So sometimes we have, really boring dreams. Um, the dream that I was just telling you about before that I couldn't remember, I went to a store. I mean, this is like such a COVID kind of dream. I went to a store and I was talking to the clerk and I had forgot. I have the mask that kind of goes around your neck and you pull up, sort of, and it's like that ski masky kind of thing. And I forgot to do that. And like, that was the dream. Like, that was the dream that I had. So, you can get better at remembering your dreams because uh, with practice, people say one of the things, if you want to, I mean, I'm not a big believer in this, but like you could do a dream journal where every morning you write your dreams down and that helps you remember them longer. And I'm sorry, Anita, I think I had put you under the other question. Deep sleep and long-term memory creation connection studies. Yes, there's a whole bunch of those um, where people focus in on how sleep and specifically like it's REM sleep that helps us consolidate our long-term memories. Um, and some people think dreams might just be the after effect of that. So, and actually, I guess to kind of to what Joel had just said was that you know, a lot of our dreams, if you had a boring day, you really didn't do much, you just sat around and watched TV, that might be the dream you have that night. And part of it's also to delete the useless stuff. Um, 5 years from now, does it matter if I wore a blue shirt or a green shirt? Probably not, right? And that might be something your brain's going to delete over. And dreaming might give you sort of a way to optimize your hard drive to get rid of the stuff that you don't really need. So cool. Anybody else? Let's see. Well, thank you all for this. Thank you all for coming. I hope finals are going well, and I hope, getting through this unique time that we're in. Um, are there any books? There are a ton of books. Uh, Dream analysis probably has its own section in some bookstores. Uh, there's different types, though, if you want to look at it. Like there are sort of the archetypal dream analysis things where if you dream about a snake, it means X. Uh, I'm not a big believer in the this means that for everybody. I think a lot of it has to do with what you think it means. So, maybe just if you're interested in doing your own dream analysis, write down your dreams in the morning, and then maybe after a month or two, start seeing if you see any patterns. Like, ooh, you know, keep having these dreams that I'm not prepared, or I keep having these dreams that this is happening, or that I'm in a car accident, or that I don't have the money for the subway, and then sort of come to your own understanding of what that might mean for you is probably much better than buying a book on dream analysis. Uh, Thank you, Deanna. And uh, so a lot of times we can, the dreamscape is kind of interesting, right? Because it can have this lands. Have you ever noticed the weirdest things can happen to you in a dream, and it makes perfect sense? Like, you know, I don't speak Polish. I've never been to Poland, but I could have a dream that I'm the president of Poland, and like in the dream, that makes perfect sense. Like, I don't question that. I think I'm speaking Polish to people when I'm just basically like, uh, I can't even think of a Polish word, uh, you know, and I'm just saying what I think is, Polish. So, you know, uh, so yeah, it's that's one of the questions of it might not just be this learning theory. Maybe there are some underlying themes, but you know, well, cool. Well, thank you all for coming. Woo. Stay safe, everybody.